Today we are reading an essay from One magazine written by Del Martin in 1959. She founded the Daughters of Bilitis, the first lesbian organization in the United States, in 1955. And she wrote this in 1959, and it is called Men Who Find Lesbians Desirable. Unlike some of the organizations which concern themselves with the question of homosexuality, One has always operated coeducationally, believing that, however varied their lives may be in details, the male and female homosexual are pretty much in the same boat together. Consequently, One has had women on its staff ever since 1952. Such names as Geraldine Jackson, Anne Carroll Reed, Eve Ellory, Jane Summers, Sten Russell, Allison Hunter, Dawn Frederick, Alice Horvath, Carol Robin, and many others are well known to those who have been reading the magazine for any length of time. What the corporation would have been like without the faithful and talented contributions of its many women is hard to imagine. An entirely different type of organization exclusively for women, the Daughters of Bilitis, was organized in San Francisco in the fall of 1955. One of the founders, Del Martin, currently president, in the following article describes some of the problems which uniquely confront the women in her organization. One's editors felt that in the interests of a broader understanding of such problems, readers would find such an article of special interest. Just how would you define a lesbian? For years, I have been under the impression that a lesbian is a woman who is attracted to her own sex, emotionally, physically, and/or spiritually. If this definition is correct, and I still think it is, it would necessarily follow that the male of the species holds little, if any, sexual attraction for the lesbian. For her, he may be a very dear friend or companion, but not a lover. There are many men who apparently find this negotiation of their romantic prowess a challenge. The lesbian is then a woman who just hasn't met the right man. To put it in the vernacular, all she needs is a good lay. There are other men, heterosexually oriented, who find one woman attractive, but the idea of two women together becomes ever so much more enticing. These men may make attempts to meet lesbians in gay bars, but more often become avid readers and collectors of lesbian literature. Sometimes the whole idea becomes so fascinating that they crave first-hand accounts and may seek out lesbian contacts for the sole purpose of developing a pen-pal relationship. They claim to be very understanding and sympathetic. You may speak freely to me. In fact, dear lesbian, please share in writing the most intimate moments of your sex life in graphic detail. But unfortunately for these men, the lesbian regards her love life as something very personal and is therefore reticent, even among lesbian friends, about such discussions, either verbal or written. It is interesting to note that almost all pornographic literature on the lesbian theme is not written by and for lesbians, but by men for male consumption. Many men who claim to be heterosexual admit that they are rather effeminate in appearance, mannerisms, and outlook. And being somewhat over the equator of the male-female polarity scale, they seek their masculine counterpart in a lesbian. What they fail to realize is that the lesbian does not want a pseudo-feminine partner. She wants the real McCoy. Some male homosexuals feel that there may still be a possibility for them to make a heterosexual adjustment and attain the fulfillment of marriage, fatherhood, and home. These men will more than likely choose a lesbian for a mate because they feel she will be more understanding. Other male homosexuals will propose marriage to lesbians for the sake of convenience and security against the wagging tongues of the hostile society. These are generally marriages in name only, with each partner going his or her separate way. The male transvestites and/or transsexuals who seek lesbian companionship are generally disappointed. These men are actually looking for the more conventional tea party, sewing circle, or bridge club female set, and somehow the lesbians just don't fit this picture. Then, of course, there are the voyeurs who would pay a considerable price for the privilege of watching lesbians in the act. And if the lesbian is reticent in writing or talking about her sex life, she would certainly be even less inclined to perform for those bug-eyed viewers. There are also men who identify themselves as queer for women. This group would include older men who, by virtue of their age, have become impotent. They mistakenly believe that the method by which the lesbian may obtain sexual gratification, the technique of which they are certain they can perform more deftly than any woman, is the end-all answer. They fail to realize that lesbianism is not just a mode of sexual gratification, not just an act. It is something a little more complicated and involved, and yet quite simple, really. Lesbianism is a way of life, the emotional, physical, and spiritual expression of the love of one woman for another. It's wild to me that this was written in 1959, and women today are dealing with all of the same behaviors. Being told you need the right man, you just need a good lay, can I watch? Wow. 1959, and we deal with all of the exact same stuff today. Wow.